Hello, first tonight, more misery on the trains. Hundreds of services cancelled and an official strike could be on the way at Christmas.
Around 200 services were cancelled today on First Capital Connect, half of its services on the line between Bedford and Brighton. Other lines were affected earlier this week. First Capital Connect says it's had no choice but to make the cancellations because drivers are refusing to work overtime. They're angry at plans for a 0% increase in pay this year and a 3% increase next year. The dispute is so far unofficial, but unions are planning to ballot for strikes which could affect Christmas travel. Today, the Transport Minister condemned their action, calling it irresponsible.
The morning commute, dreaded by many, made worse by cancellations. One passenger sent us these pictures taken on the 6:56 train from Luton to Sevenoaks. At Bedford Station, many commuters were frustrated by delays and lack of information.
Any train that was promised didn't materialise, and in fact I've only just got to Bedford now, and that's nearly an hour and a bit later, and it's just infuriating.
It's going to play a big effect on my grades. If I had an exam today, that could have been me missing my exam.
Well, this is the closest we can show you to Bedford Station because First Capital Connect won't actually let us film on their land. But step inside the station and you'll see almost every other First Capital Connect train is cancelled. With a total of 200 trains cancelled along the Bedford to Brighton route, the government hit out at the train drivers, accusing them of colluding by refusing to work overtime.
Train companies need to ensure that their staffing arrangements are robust, so they cannot be held to ransom. But the disruption should be halted immediately by an end to the current concerted action.
The Transport Minister's comments have outraged ASLEF, the train drivers' union. They say these are ludicrous attacks by politicians who have nothing better to do with their time.
Our members have shown a great deal of flexibility, the introduction of new trains, new routes. We've assisted the company, and we feel that a company that's paying major dividends to its shareholders should reflect some of that to the employees.
First Capital Connect apologise for cancellations, but insist the pay deal they're offering is reasonable. So we're no closer to this situation being resolved. And with the prospect of a strike, things could get worse for passengers. Fatima Manji, BBC Look East.
Meanwhile, an investigation is underway after a freight train was derailed in Ipswich. It happened near Derby Road station at lunchtime. A car, which is thought to have been stolen, left the road, went through a fence and crashed into the side of the train. Nobody was hurt, but services between Ipswich and Felixstowe are being replaced by buses. A man has been arrested.
The train driver's fine because it's such a long train, he was a long way away from it. He applied the emergency brakes at that time. We're going to have to uncouple the first 17 carriages and move them off. We've got to do some security checks on the last carriage to make sure they're OK with moving them off. But it will take 5 hours to repair the track. So there is a huge inconvenience to the travelling public by the irresponsible individual.
A paedophile has died before he could stand trial for abusing 10 children at a care home. Newspaper reports suggest John Darby, who lived at Hunstanton in Norfolk, may have committed suicide. He was found unconscious at home after he failed to turn up for a court appearance.
The flats close to the sea where 73-year-old John Darby lived quietly for more than 15 years. Last week, a neighbour saw him taken away in an ambulance after being found unconscious. He died yesterday in hospital in King's Lynn. A diabetic, it appears he may have taken an overdose of insulin. A warrant for John Darby's arrest had been issued at a London court after he failed to appear for trial. A police investigation had been launched after a chance meeting with one of his victims in the street.
John Darby had pleaded guilty to 18 counts relating to indecent images of children, some of the most extreme nature. He'd also admitted 1 count of indecent assault involving a boy under 16. He was charged with a number of other serious sexual assaults against 10 different victims.
Lewisham Council in London had employed Darby to run a former children's home. During 13 years in charge here, he'd abused boys in his care. Today, one of his victims spoke of the nightmare he'd experienced at Darby's hands.
At the time, it made my world fall apart. I didn't know anything like that. I didn't understand anything of it. But we was all threatened. If you say anything, you'll keep us there longer. And with the beatings that you used to get, it's all like drummed it into you.
Police say John Darby's death is not being treated as suspicious. He died without facing justice for the pain and suffering he inflicted. a man police believe may have been responsible for hundreds of crimes. Kim Riley, BBC Look East, Hunstanton.
The government has announced a change in the law which will ban model agencies from charging upfront joining fees. Look East has carried out several investigations after people paid hundreds of pounds at photo shoots without the promise of any work.
Pam Boone has been working in the modelling business for around 30 years. She's seen many of her clients have pictures published in magazines, but she's also come across those who've been ripped off, having paid upfront fees. For her, this new legislation is an important step.
There are people who are there prepared to take money from you, and they haven't got a conscience, and you're not going to get anything in return. But what does happen is I get the calls the next day after from concerned parents who have parted with money and haven't got a clue as to what's going to happen next.
Previously, Look East has highlighted cases where people have been lured to hotels for photo shoots.
Hi, are you going to the model agency shoot, model photo shoot?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Don't go in.
Mike Jaziviak's wife lost money. He's been campaigning ever since.
Save yourself a lot of money. Go to a genuine modelling agency and they will tell you within 5 minutes whether you've got what it takes.
It's adverts like these that attract wannabe models, and there's no mention of exact fees.
Some of these models are probably being turned down by bigger agencies, and they'll do anything to get in there and to get their photographs taken. And sometimes, you know, they go along to these hotels and there are no photographs at the end of it, and it's hard to track these people down.
Pam Boone is pleased with the government's action. She thinks it'll help genuine businesses like hers keep a good reputation. Felicity Simper, BBC Look East.
Well, the new rules will be policed by the Employment Agency Standards Inspectorate. Earlier, I spoke to the Business Minister, Pat McFadden, and he told me rogue agencies could be banned from operating for up to 10 years.
We live in the era of the X Factor generation. A lot of young people want to be famous. There's nothing wrong with that. To paraphrase W.B. Yeats, I don't want to tread on anyone's dreams. But I also don't want people to be exploited because of their dreams.
But what's confusing about your new plans is you say you're banning upfront fees from modelling agencies, but you say there'll just be a 30-day cooling-off period in respect of photographic and motion picture services provided by agencies. Well, some of these modelling agencies charge the money for the photos, so they're not actually going to be banned from doing that, are they?
They're acting as agencies. What we've tried to do all the way through this is not make a regulatory change which affects the legitimate entertainment industry. And some of the activities are par for the course in the entertainment industry. So we've discussed this very, very carefully with everyone, and I think we've got a set of proposals here that on the one hand protects people in the area where we've had abuses reported, and by the way we've had more than 300 reports of abuse over the last year or so, and also make sure that the legitimate entertainment industry and the legitimate modelling industry can go on with their activity.
I spoke to a model advice service this afternoon, and they said actually none of this is really going to stick without an official register of agencies and a vetting procedure, because the actual inspectorate can't police it properly at the moment without that.
This is an inspectorate which has recruited more staff over the last couple of years and has had new legislation to give it more teeth and more powers to do the job that we've charged it to do. So obviously, like any change, we have to see how it operates, but I would hope that that concern or worry about the effectiveness of the new regulations doesn't hold. Many people have been calling for a ban on upfront fees in these casting sessions for some time. We've now heeded those calls. We will bring forward the new law, the change in the law to make that happen, and the Agency Standards Inspectorate will be charged with policing it to make sure that it's properly enforced.
Mr McFadden, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well,